Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Lunch and Learn webinar. We are going to get started here in 2 minutes. We're just going to let everybody join in as we are getting started. So if you want to hang tight, we'll get started here in about a minute. All right, we are on. It is 12 o'clock Eastern Time, and I just want to welcome everyone to today's Leadership in Action Lunch and Learn webinar. Today we are teaming up with our National Philanthropy partner, Hobie, to discuss creatively planning an event with another organization. We appreciate you attending this webinar as both Hobie and Phi Sigma Pi continue to support our shared missions and honor Hugh's legacy. If you have any questions during this webinar, or there will be a portion where questions will be asked to you and we'll ask you for responses. You can type those into the GoToWebinar box on your screen. There will also be some polls during this webinar. So during that time, you can pick one of the answers by clicking on your screen. We will also be discussing the pre-webinar lunar survival activity you are asked to complete today before the webinar. And if you'd like to follow along during the discussion, the activity can be downloaded under the handout section. We have two panelists joining us today, so I'd like to welcome them. First from Hobie is Director of National Programs for Region B, Kevin Grease. Kevin oversees 22 sites across 12 states and the District of Columbia. These 22 sites are staffed by over 1,500 volunteers and serve approximately 3,600 students annually. A major part of Kevin's responsibilities is to assist in the building and strengthening of each affiliate's volunteer corporate board of directors. Next, we have Director of Alumni Relations and Programming for Phi Sigma Pi, Sarah Smith. Sarah is an alumna of the Epsilon Alpha chapter at Kutztown University. She manages the fraternity's alumni engagement, including the National Alumni Association and alumni chapters. She also assists with national event programming and serves as the Hobie Partner Lead for Phi Sigma Pi. Sarah is a Hobie alum, and 2017 will mark her 10th year as a Hobie volunteer. Currently, Sarah serves on the Board of Trustees as Clue Director for Central Pennsylvania Hobie. So thank you, Kevin and Sarah, for both joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
All right, Kevin, so whenever you want to get started, I think we have our members here ready and waiting.
All right, great. First off, thank you for participating in the Lunar Survival Activity Challenge. One of the reasons for doing this particular activity was to demonstrate and how it is so important for us to collaborate with each other, and that when we work alone, while we have a great amount of knowledge, our knowledge it grows exponentially when we work with others and we have greater success. And what better way of doing that than our own survival? So you were asked to rank those 15 items that were on the list, and for those of you who were able to do that earlier before 9 a.m. Eastern Time, thank you. If you have submitted your results after that, you can certainly score them on your own based on the list that you will be seeing shortly. The individual results that you see here are the difference from where you scored versus where NASA scientists rank the results. So for example, oxygen is number 1. If you put it as number 2, you would have a difference of 1. And then if you add up all of those differences, this is where you get your score. The lower the score, the better the result. And I did have 3 people who I was able to score, even though they came in later, but I was able to do that. So if your initials were KK, your score was a 55. If your initials were RB, your score was a 42. And if your initials were KJ, your score was a 22. And on the next slide here, you can see this was the actual official ranking. So for those of you who did not get a score, you can see the scores, the ranking here. A score of 0 to 25 is excellent. A score of 26 to 32 is good. A score of 33 to 45 is average. A score of 46 to 55 is fair. A score of 56 to 70 suggests that you use earthbound logic. And a score of 71 to 112 is very poor, and you're one of the casualties of the space program. What we would normally do if we were working together is we would then do this again in smaller groups. And it would demonstrate to the participants then that, again, working together, we have a greater chance of survival. And I hope you enjoyed seeing your scores for this, to see where it was that you ranked, and know that when we work together, we are definitely stronger.
Thanks, Kevin. I thought that activity was very interesting, and it was cool to see everyone's results. So before we dive into the rest of our webinar, we have a poll question for all of you. And I will pull that up on the screen. Okay, so if everyone wants to take a few seconds here to answer the question, it is, does your chapter currently partner and/or co-plan events with other organizations / chapters? Give a few seconds here to get everyone's answers in. All right, looks like just about everyone answered, so we are going to share the results. And as you can see, we have 67% said yes, which is great. 8% said no, and 25% said no, but we would like to, which is also great. So this webinar will definitely help and benefit all of you. So we'll move on to our next slide, and I'll let Kevin and Sarah take it away.
So when we talk about collaborating with other organizations, whether it's planning an event or assisting them in any way, we always need to understand why we're doing it. And one of the main reasons is that because there's no reason to recreate the wheel. And what I mean by that is that we have a lot of organizations that are out there, whether they're for-profit or not-for-profit, that are doing a lot of great work in our communities. And there's no reason why you have to start something fresh in order to make a difference in your communities. So collaborating with existing organizations makes life a lot easier on you as a fraternal group, so that you can just step in and assist where needed. Also, both organizations, the organization that needs the assistance, oftentimes have limited resources. And again, for many of you, I'm sure that you too have limited resources. And we're not just talking about money. We're talking about hands. We're talking about supplies. And all of those things come into play when we are thinking about collaborating with other organizations. It also is a great way for personal networking. For many of you, you'll be starting your professional careers, and it's a great way of meeting people out in the community, other volunteers, other professionals who are working in these different industries, and again, it just adds to your tools for networking. It's also a way of finding out what your passion is without a great amount of risk. And that's because when you collaborate, there is not necessarily always this long-term commitment when you're working with another organization through a collaboration. And when you are trying to figure out where you want to give your time, this is a great way of participating in a variety of different opportunities and not necessarily having this full-time commitment. And you can explore your different things that you may have a passion about. The other thing is that there is such a huge need with existing organizations. Many not-for-profit organizations are in search of volunteers and in search of assistance in helping them fulfill their mission. And when fraternal organizations such as Phi Sigma Pi offer their services, it really fills a huge gap for those organizations. It does help spread your message as a fraternal organization as well. And Sarah, I don't know if you want to take the last two things about building new relationships and adding new members.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So when we look at partnering, whether that be with an on-campus organization or community organization, as Kevin just mentioned, we're really spreading the message and the vision and mission of Phi Sigma Pi. So the more we can get our name out there, I think the better, we will be as an organization in strengthening who we are in our community and on our campus. So if you partner with an organization on your campus, there's opportunities to get new members, figure out, with collaborating with another org, you can see who's passionate about Phi Sigma Pi, see if it's something that they would be interested in attending and getting to know and becoming a member of our organization. And then just building relationships. As we know, there's a lot of competition on campus sometimes between organizations and reserving spaces and getting your name and making sure you're distinguished. So as a way to collaborate, you can really cross-promote and build strength and build communications and relationships with those on your campus. And I think it's really also goes to show, especially with the lunar activity, that people are going to have different experiences, different backgrounds, different knowledge than you. So, in that lunar activity, if you would do this with a group, there would be those who they would, obviously have more knowledge than you would. So I would check that out and figure out, who can you partner with and who can you learn from. Say I don't have a whole lot of science knowledge, so some of that, the NASA results ranking was really enlightening for me because that's stuff that I wouldn't know. So I think it's also a great learning opportunity to learn from those who are in different orgs and different community groups.
So now that we've established the importance of collaborating with other organizations, how do you start? Where do you begin?
And I have another poll question for all of you. Your poll question is, what does your chapter struggle with most when partnering with an organization? If everyone wants to just take a few moments here to submit their answers. We almost have everybody. A few more seconds here. Have everyone get their last few answers in. All right, I think we have everybody. So here are our results. 15% said time, 12% said lack of resources, 54% said member availability, and 19% said planning coordination. I will turn it back over to you, Kevin.
Great, thank you. So, in order to collaborate with someone else, we really need to know a little bit about ourselves and what it is that we can bring to the table. So I would suggest that, again, and many of the things that we're going to talk about, these are things that you can apply to your personal life as well as through your chapter as a whole. So begin with a skills assessment. What skills do you bring to the table? What skills can your chapter bring as a whole, as a collaborative, to another organization? Because you have to remember that when you want to collaborate with someone, you're helping to fulfill and to fill a need. And you can't make that up. It just doesn't work. As Sarah said, she does not have a science background. So if there's an organization that is looking for a group to collaborate with, and you don't have, and they need someone with a science background, you don't want to turn to Sarah. No offense, Sarah, but you don't want to turn to Sarah for that. But you do, but as a whole, you may have someone in your group that does. So you can, again, have that on your list, your skills assessment. Know what you bring to the table. Passion. This is a huge thing, and sometimes it is undersold when trying to collaborate with another organization. You need to have a passion for the work that they do. And again, you don't always know that as you're trying to find out where you fit. And that's okay, but you'll know right away whether or not they fulfilled that particular need for you. Energy. A lot of these organizations are also staffed by people who put in long hours and are not always paid at a substantial salary. And so therefore, they sometimes lack the drive to be creative, and they lack the energy to do extra things. And that's where you come in, or you can come in as either a chapter or as an individual, by providing that boost of energy to an organization that is sort of lacking that creativity for a variety of reasons. Then you also have those new ideas. And this is probably one of the greatest struggles of bringing something to a collaboration. Because as the outsider, so to speak, collaborating with an organization that's already in existence, they're not always open to those new ideas. Even though part of the collaboration may be to bring in new ideas, you're also going to hear the word no or the phrase, we've tried that. But you should not give up on creating those new ideas and bringing in that input. The next thing that you bring to a collaboration is time. And again, while I understand that time is a very precious commodity for many of you, and according to the poll that you just took, for some of you, time is an issue in terms of the reasons why you don't collaborate. But the important thing to remember here is that when you offer your time and when you're doing it in a collaboration, you don't have to give more than you can commit to. And I think that's something that, as people who are givers, and oftentimes those who belong to fraternal organizations and work for not-for-profits, they have that giver mentality. And sometimes it's really hard to say no. But the amount of time that you have to give is really determined by the quality of the time and not the quantity. So always remember that even if you can only give 1 hour, that makes up a huge difference. In fact, that 1 hour is of a great value. In 2016, it was determined actually that the average volunteer hour was worth $24.14 to an organization. So for every hour that every one of you brings in a collaboration, and if there are 5 of you, you're now talking over $100 an hour volunteering, and those are huge savings to an organization. So don't sell short if you don't have the resources in terms of money or tangible items. The time that you give also has a great value. Sarah?
So when we look, So when we look into, figuring out what do we bring to a collaboration, to a partnership, and then we now need to look into building it. So the first things that you really need to look at is look at your campus and look at your community. Who will be your natural allies? Who are organizations that closely align with Phi Sigma Pi or your personal values, if you're doing this professionally in your career? Who are going to be those that, the missions align very well, similar, membership, ones that will make it very easy for you to work together, such as Phi Sigma Pi and Hobie. Who are going to be your powerful players? So who are some of the organizations on campus that are more well known, that do collaborations already? Who can be ones that can open doors for opportunities for you? And then who are some organizations that may not know about Phi Sigma Pi, that you would have the opportunity to reach out, get your message, say, hey, we're Phi Sigma Pi and this is what we're about, and we would love to look into partnering and collaborating with you, because this is really an opportunity to build relationships and build bridges that your chapter can utilize in the future. Then we need to be strategic in who we're partnering with. So when you look at, you establish your list of maybe target groups or target audiences, you need to figure out, why do you want to collaborate with them? What kind of collaboration are you looking for? So is it more of an organizational? Is it something for a specific project, a certain event that you would like to co-sponsor together? And then who would be in charge or facilitate the collaboration? So all good relationships take work, and the same thing goes with collaborations and partnerships. So, making sure that we are having friendly, conversations and getting to know each other, and making sure that information gets translated and transferred to officer. They also need to be mutually beneficial, and I think that's very important for partnerships. So, it's important that if we're going to be volunteering our time and having certain requirements, that we understand what we're going into. So how will each group get out? What will each group get out of the partnership, and what do you want to accomplish? So it's really important that when you sit down and start figuring out what you want to do, setting goals and even doing a strategic planning session would be very beneficial to having a solid foundation. Take the time to get to know one another. So, make sure you can understand the organization and where they're coming from. So people are much more willing to listen and work together if they feel like you care about them and you know what the group is doing. So take some time to research that organization, that group, find out what they're interested in, what they're passionate about, and even, grab coffee and have joint meetings. Lastly, mutual respect and understanding. So above all, it's important that your chapter and other groups, when you enter a collaboration, that you have mutual respect and understanding of each other's missions. So making sure that you can back and define what that org stands for, because when you start becoming associated with the group, their vision, their mission is going to be aligned and seen with yours. So as I said, definitely as you're planning these out and looking at potential collaborators, it really is building relationships, and relationships do take time and energy, but they definitely are rewarding and they benefit everybody.
So what to look for in a partner organization? To piggyback on what Sarah was just talking about, it's that mission. You want to have, and you want to be looking for organizations that that help further your mission, and that they too have a clear mission of what their goals are and the purpose and the reason for their existence. When you have organizations that complement each other that way, again, you will have stronger growth as two separate organizations. You want clear guidelines. Again, we're going to go back to that time commitment. Time is so precious, and what you commit to is what you should commit to. And if you commit to 10 hours a week, that organization is looking for you for 10 hours a week. If you commit to 2 hours, they will look for 2 and should not expect anything more beyond that commitment. So make sure that when you're having that cup of coffee and you're going through the details and the strategies of what it is that you can do for each other, make sure that the guidelines are crystal clear. You want those specific responsibilities for the member and or for the chapter. Financial obligations as well, making sure that what you commit to, you can follow through on. No one likes to be disappointed. And even though, we're doing, when we set up these collaborations, no one goes in to disappoint anyone, but oftentimes disappointment does occur. And most of the reasons why that disappointment occurs is because of false promises. So make sure that you have a clear understanding of what you can give and what you can promise to your partner organization, and also make sure that your partner organization is clear to what you are providing them. You also want to have to look for a partner that has a clear needs list. I hear horror stories frequently about organizations that seek collaborations or that have offers of collaborations, and they don't want to say no. So as the parent organization, I have someone that contacts me and says, we are willing to offer you this service or this number of volunteers to come in and do an activity with you. Can you create something for us? And the parent organization oftentimes will say yes, whether they need it or not, because they're so afraid of saying no. Whereas if you work with an organization that has a clearly established needs list, you know that they actually have those needs. So look for those types of organizations as well. There have been many classrooms, many rooms that have been painted, and they get painted every year because that's the default for many organizations. When you make an offer to help partner or to help collaborate with them. What do you need? Well, they sit there and they really don't need anything, so they offer painting. And that's a waste of your time and your resources. So look for those organizations that have a clearly defined wish or needs list. You also want to look for sustainability. Those organizations that are looking not just for a one-time hit and run. While there is a benefit to those types of services, you really want to look at something or at an organization that is looking for sustainable services. So what do we mean by sustainable services? And here we're going to be talking about the external relationships and maintaining that relationship. Just because your chapter is working with an organization this year, and maybe next year and the year after, there is no guarantee that you have committed to work with them for an unlimited amount of time. However, the service that you're probably providing to that organization as a collaborative partner is crucial to their mission and to their operations. Therefore, what you want to be able to do is to create systems for them that are sustainable if you no longer partner with them. And as chapters, your mission changes as the individual membership changes. And that's a wonderful thing to have because it keeps everything fresh. But when you're looking at partnering organizations, that's a challenge. But if you create these sustainable systems that you can put into place, they can continue on with their mission and with the project, with or without you. And that's a huge, huge gift to any not-for-profit organization or partner organization that you may be looking at. And the same thing can be said internally. So whereas your leadership and your membership changes based on the year, because you graduate, you move on, you also want to look at having that sustainability internally as well, and creating systems so that you have a whole system set up, a process set up for choosing partner organizations, for choosing who you're going to collaborate with, and having that type of information and those processes in place helps for smoother transitions of leadership and membership. The last thing is, again, you want to make sure, and this goes back to what Sarah was talking about as well, is collaborations need to be mutually beneficial by definition. Oftentimes, however, that's not the case. And in many instances, collaborations tend to be more one-sided, and the collaborator is just more a provider of resources and services. And yet, when a collaboration is meant to sustain, then you do have that mutual respect for each other, and everyone is benefiting. You're never going to always get it 50%, but it is extremely important that both partners or all partners in a collaboration have a benefit for the work that they are doing.
And then when we look at maintaining a relationship with an organization, I know there's often chapters that work with and plan events with other orgs on campuses or in their community. But as I mentioned earlier, building a relationship is vitally important, and then maintaining that throughout your chapter, throughout transitions, as Kevin just talked about, with making sure there's sustainability. So ensure that you're holding regular meetings between the two orgs, having joint meetings between membership to discuss your mission, ideas that you have, goals, any relevant issues or messages that you want to deliver jointly. And then from there, you have a shared knowledge base. So utilize the resources and the connections that you make between the two organizations. Having a positive relationship can allow you to share that relevant information, which will ultimately strengthen and benefit both of your organizations. And then you also have the opportunity for cross-promotion. So as mentioned earlier, your chapter may feel overwhelmed sometimes in its efforts to promote yourself on campus and, making sure you're not getting lost in the shuffle. So have more organizations that know Phi Sigma Pi and know you. They can help promote and send people your way. Again, help get your name out more, and more people will know about Phi Sigma Pi. So it's really, as we talk about mutually beneficial, having that, audience and having that larger sea of fish that you can go to promote Phi Sigma Pi.
So now that we've talked about why it's important to collaborate, the steps that we can take to collaborate, and as we've just discussed the importance of what to look for in a collaborator, where do we find these organizations? There's a tremendous amount of resources that are available to you to do this, both internally and externally when you're looking at collaborative efforts. Here's just a few lists of organizations that, volunteermatch.org, Idealist, Hands-On Network, Create the Good, and then campus community organizations. But these are just a few. So if you could type in your message box, where else can you think of to find opportunities to partner? Whether it is on campus or off campus, any opportunities that you can think of to find partners.
And once we get some answers, I'll be reading some of them out loud so we can hear what Kevin and Sarah have to say about them. So if everyone wants to start typing in some answers. All right, looks like we have two so far. Kai Johnson, she said, at Townsend, we have an involved at TU page that lists all of the organizations on campus. Riley said, my school's list of volunteers opportunities. Colton says a club recruitment day, which sounds great. Danielle says other Greek organizations on campus. Those are some great answers. We have some more coming in. Samantha says my university has a list. Colleen said we have an activities fair every semester. That sounds fun. We have someone said talk to the Chamber of Commerce in your community. That is a great tip. We have Jonah saying university sponsors days of service. They usually also host them around the country for alumni for you to expose different organizations to the community. Alyssa said, I found some organizations off campus by the United Way's website. Megan mentioned going out and talking to local businesses and charities in person, which is also good and works on your communication skills. So what do you, Kevin and Sarah, think about all those answers? I think they were pretty great.
They are great, and they're also creative. And there's one area that was completely overlooked, and it's your own membership. Your own members are going to come with personal experiences of activities and of organizations that they have volunteered with in their past as individuals. And they will come with some great ideas. So also make sure that you're looking out to your members to find out what organizations they would like to bring forward to expose the rest of the membership in the chapter to.
I definitely would add that having personal connections with staff members at your university, your faculty advisor, professors, they're often involved with organizations in their community and they can point you in the right direction. I know a personal experience is we got involved with the fire department in our community based off of a recommendation and a connection that I had with a staff member at the university. So I think it's important to, also use your membership, but then see, ways that you can get support from people that you know as well. Those personal connections are really important.
So that exercise was more on a global and more macro approach. So now let's bring it down to actual organizations that you can partner with. For those of you who are struggling and don't currently partner with organizations, you can benefit perhaps just from hearing some of the organizations that existing chapters already partner with and collaborate with, other than Hobie, and now we'll take some time to again brainstorm what other organizations you either currently partner with or ones that you potentially might partner with in the future. So again, if you could use the the chat to type in those particular organizations, and we'll share those aloud as well.
Well, it looks like we already have some coming in. Samantha said we have a place in Vegas called 3 Square. We also have other food banks and soup kitchens in the area. Colton says Billion Graves. Riley says Habitat for Humanity and Youth Sports Clubs, which are all great organizations. Sarah said that they partnered with the Career Center on campus to co-sponsor a resume review workshop, which is very beneficial to all members on a campus. We have Alyssa saying Habitat for Humanity and Miracle League. Juliana, we have partnered with organizations called Students Helping Honduras, where we have donated supplies to, which is amazing. Kai said we currently partner with other Greek organizations, undergraduate research clubs, and other service organizations. Megan has said a lot of our organizations on campus work with the American Cancer Society for Relay for Life every spring, which is a great organization, which I know a lot of campuses have. And Anna says we have service fraternities we partner with on our campus. So those are all some great resources. And for those of you who are you said you haven't partnered with somebody yet, but you're looking for someone, I would definitely jot down some of these names and start looking them up or what is similar on your campus.
Thanks for sharing all of those.
Yes. Okay, well, I'm going to give Sarah and Kevin a break here for a few minutes, and I'm going to talk about the risk management side of event planning. So
the fun part.
Yes, they let me do the fun stuff. So I have another poll for everybody to answer, and that is, have you read Phi Sigma Pi's National Risk Management Policy? I'll give you all a few seconds to answer that. Answer truthfully. I'm going to give everyone here about another 5 seconds to get your answers in. We have almost everybody. All right. Let's share our results, which they are about what I expected. 46% said yes, which is great. 38% said no, and 15% said I don't know where to find it, which is fine because guess what? There's where you can find it. Oh shoot, there we go. There's where you can find it. phisigmapi.org/NRMP, which is National Risk Management Policy. So if you have not read it yet, I suggest that you do, especially if you are currently planning an event or if you're looking to plan an event. This is a guideline that you should follow when it comes to risk management. And there are other things that you can add to it. And if you ever have any questions about risk management or the National Risk Management Policy, you can always email riskmanagement@phisigmapi.org. So with the help of our insurance representative, Jennifer, I have some things to go over with you for your chapter to think about when you are planning an event with another organization or with a third-party vendor. So there are some things that you need to know. So I have another poll. This is our last one. Have you planned an event with a third-party vendor as your chapter? And now a third-party vendor would be like transportation or people like a catering service or anything like that, or a security service for control. I'll give everyone here a few more seconds. All right, I think we have everybody. So here are our results. 57% said yes, 35% said no, and 9% said not sure, which is fine. So if you have used a third-party vendor, here are some things that maybe you didn't know that they could do or that you did. And if you haven't, here are some things to think about if you are planning an event and you want to use a third-party vendor. There's a few things that they can do for you, and that includes obtaining proper licenses and or permits. They can also check the IDs for if you are having alcohol as part of your event. So they can have that power to check the IDs, and they can also have complete control of alcohol, which is great because then there will be no service to any minors or to any intoxicated persons. Finally, a third-party vendor can also provide security or crowd control if you would need that, and safe transportation, which is great, especially if you are having any sort of alcohol provided at your event. Now, when it comes to signing contracts, which I'm sure some of you have done, especially if you're using third-party vendors, we recommend that you send them with your event planning form or to the riskmanagement@phi-sigma-pi.org email address. And if you could send them to us unsigned if possible, that would be before you would, so we want to make sure that you're getting these ahead of time because, you know, for the event planning form, you have to submit that 30 days before your event. So you want to make sure if you can have them unsigned, that would be great because that gives our insurance company a chance to look over them and possibly negotiate or change things in the contract to make sure they are well-rounded and we know what's going on, and we just want to make sure that everyone is safe for your event. So also, when it comes to contracts, a chapter does not have the authority to sign or bind the national organization of Phi Sigma Pi to any requirements. So when you are signing a contract, you have to make sure that agreements have been executed under the name of the chapter only. And if you are ever not sure about anything when it comes to insurance, contract agreements, third-party vendors, do not hesitate to call or email us or send it our way to the national office. We would want our insurance company to review that for you, and we are here to help. So if you ever have any concerns, make sure that you send it our way and we can help you work that out. And we always want to make sure that our insurance company is reviewing any contracts or additional insured agreements. So if you have those, please make sure you are sending them to us. And this will help your event run smoothly and have the proper risk management. And then we know everyone's going to have a great time. So that's it for my little spiel. So,
and I would add to that when you are collaborating with another organization, they too are going to have risk management policies, and there are going to be restrictions. So also keep that in mind. You know, I heard many of you talk about Habitat for Humanity, and you know they're going to have restrictions on. For many of you, it may not be an issue, but perhaps if it's early in your year, if you've got anyone under the age of 18 as a member, there may be some age restrictions at Habitat for Humanity in order to sign off consent. So you always have to take those things into consideration. And when working with Hobie, in order to be responsible for anyone under the age of 18, we ask that all of our volunteers in those responsible positions be over the age of 21. So you're always going to have many risk management issues brought in when you have two different organizations. So you also want to do your research and make sure that you're clear on the other organization's risk management policies as well.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Yes, that is very true. And like I said, if you ever have any questions, make sure you just send them our way. We are here to help. So I think before we wrap everything up, we are going to open the floor for questions for Kevin and Sarah. So if anyone has any questions, please use that chat box and I will relay the message to them and they will get you an answer.
And as the questions come in, I'd love to just also point out and plug that all of these lunch and learn webinars are recorded, and they're located on our YouTube channel, the Buy Some National Army YouTube channel, under a playlist called LiA Learn. So these are great resources to utilize when you're planning projects or collaborating. Last year we had a lunch and learn called Logistics and Event Planning, How to be an Effective Volunteer, Getting Involved with Service. So these are all resources with great information from Hobie of how to work with and get members excited about getting involved. So I definitely would recommend checking them out and listening to the recordings if you haven't watched them in person about event planning and working with other orgs.
All right, it looks like we have a question here. It is, if I would want to plan an event with another organization, would it be smart to create a committee within my chapter to help plan?
Absolutely. When you're talking about the different aspects of collaborations, and when we took that poll early on, one of the greatest concerns is time and resources. And as we learned from the lunar experience, the more people that we have involved in the planning of something, the greater success that you will have. And I would highly recommend having a committee, so that, again, you're not committing on behalf of yourself, you're committing on behalf of your chapter. And you want to make sure that there's buy-in from the members of your chapter to participate in this collaboration. And the more people you have involved in that process, the more buy-in you will get and the more success that you will have in your collaboration.
And I think it's also important to know with time too that, sometimes it's hard to plan something with just the course of the semester. So it's actually, if time's, important and difficult for the chapter, it's, start planning in the fall if you want to do a spring event. So, or if you want to do something in the fall, start planning in the spring. So that way you give yourselves extra time, that you're not feeling like you have to rush to get something finished right away.
Sarah, I think you actually answered our next question, which was, what is recommended amount of time to plan an event in an organization in advance with another organization? And that's great. Like you said, you start early. You can never start early enough. So we have another question here, and it is, I am the service chair, and I'm having a hard time getting feedback and participation from brothers. I do ask them for their opinion on where to volunteer and get little to nothing back. What would you suggest to do to get brothers motivated?
Well, actually, we just did a webinar on that last month. Sandrea from Hobie, she led a lunch and learn on becoming a motivating leader and involved with service. And I think that really goes back to, how do you get everyone involved? And we know that's a struggle with all chapters is, when everybody has different responsibilities, classes, other things they're involved with, it can be hard. So I think, finding some folks in your chapter that have shown interest and really using them to help rally the troops. So finding, 3 to 4 people who have really, put themselves out there or had good ideas, and, making sure they can run with it. So for example, one semester I wasn't on the service committee, but I've always been very service oriented. So I went to the service chair and said, I have this really cool idea. Do you mind if I work with you to, to run with it? And she was open to that. So I think, definitely seeing, even if there's initiates that have really good connections or ideas to ways that they can partner and give back, that's a great way to make them feel involved with the chapter already. So I think, utilize the couple of people that have expressed interest and have them share their energy. So I think, as Kevin mentioned earlier, energy is super important. So being passionate and showing your energy and your passion for what you're doing, bring people in to get them excited, do, interactive events, get people out of their comfort zones or something that, will push them and challenge them. I think that'd be something really cool to get those involved.
I would also try to make it social. So, when we're just seeking input It's really easy to ignore an email or a text or a Twitter message or anything along those lines. It's really very easy to just ignore that. But make it social. Bring people together, whether it's for coffee, pizza, or just any type of social activity that you can possibly think of, and then throw out those questions. And make sure that that you're keeping it fun, as Sarah said. And don't, when it's face to face, it's a lot more difficult to ignore.
All right, I did type it in the chat box, but just to answer a quick question, just to reiterate that you can find the past Lunch and Learn webinars at youtube.com/Phi Sigma Pi, and there is an LiA Lunch and Learn webinar playlist that they are all listed under. And I think we have one last question for today, Kevin and Sarah, if you can answer one more. It is, any suggestions for recurring events with a partner organization versus a one-time event?
I'm just sitting here thinking. I know there's organizations and chapters that work with local missions or local soup kitchens that every semester they sponsor a meal or they go serve a meal. And I think that's a great way to, keep that relationship consistent. So every semester you either sponsor like a spaghetti dinner or a pancake breakfast or, making bag lunches to hand out at, a community event. So I think that's something that's really cool where you can consistently work with the staff of that, the nonprofit or the volunteers. And then you can also keep seeing the same people too. So, if someone comes out to that event, in the fall and then they come out again in the spring, you get to recognize and know the people in that area. And I see just a lot of benefit from that. I think if you make it fun and make it exciting and make it just part of the DNA of, your chapter and your membership, I think that's something that can be fun and reoccurring, and you can add themes and different elements into it. Music, if someone plays guitar, they can play music during it. I think that's a really cool way to get your name out in the community and make it fun and interactive for those involved.
Yeah, and to tie in with that also, if your chapter is near a Ronald McDonald House, they often are looking for sponsors for meals, and what you do there is you go in before dinner, prepare the meal, you do bring the ingredients for the meal, and then you leave, oftentimes before the residents come down, just to protect their privacy. But it really is a great team building activity. You can do it as often as the schedule permits. Oftentimes those really successful, again, collaborators have a lot of partners, and sometimes it's even difficult, which is a great problem to have, but sometimes it's difficult to get on a schedule. But the other thing is with your whole national partner, Hobie, you can plan clues, and you can plan a clue in the spring, and you can plan a clue in the fall, and you can continuously do that at the same exact location and invite the same schools, and working with us, and you can repeat that over and over again with different people, of course, but the same event.
And one last thing I like to add on too is, as we look at finding partners and collaborating, you can always partner and collaborate with other Phi Sigma Pi chapters. So, co-plan an annual ICR event for the chapters in your area. Philadelphia hosts Philly Cups. So I think that's something that you can do every year and establish, a committee or a chair for that. But, definitely as you look at partners, if there's a chapter that's close by, co-plan an event with them, do an ICR event and get other chapters involved as well.
Well, I just want to thank Kevin and Sarah for discussing how to creatively plan a service event with another organization with us today. I think that was a great conversation that we had. We had a lot of interaction and getting some answers in. So I just want to thank them for joining us. And I just want to put out a reminder to everybody that National Philanthropy Day is November 5th, so that is coming up, and we love to see all of you chapters planning a service event for that day, either with Hobie or with another service organization that you have partnered with after being inspired today. So share your events with us on social media, and who knows, maybe we'll just reshare them. You will also be able to watch and share this webinar on our YouTube page, like we've discussed before, at youtube.com/Phi Sigma Pi. Share it with your members who are not able to join us this afternoon, and maybe share some of those tips and tricks that you got from today. And thank you again for participating today, and congratulations to all of you who were here. You have earned 8 leadership and action points. Remember that your goal is to reach 75 points to earn your leadership and action certification. And remember that you can earn more points by participating in local, regional, and national modules or the monthly Tweet Meets and Lunch and Learn webinars. Our next Lunch and Learn webinar will be on Tuesday, November 14th at noon Eastern. And for that webinar, we're going to be talking about using leadership skills for global outreach. And you can register for that at phisigmapi.org/lunchandlearn. And our next Tweet Meet will be on Wednesday, November 1st at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And the topic is Initiates to Members. And you can register for that at phisigmapi.org/tweetmeet. And I am going to be sending a link in the chat box to everybody for today's Lunch and Learn survey. If everyone would like, you could just take a moment to fill that out. That will also be coming to you in an email as well. So I think that does it for us today for the Leadership in Action Lunch and Learn. So lead on, everybody. We'll chat with you all soon.